Hello, this is Eric with Eric's Gear. Today I am looking into something I found online earlier this week. So there's a website called Stack Exchange, and people go there to ask questions, whether it's about writing or computers or just whatever. It's out on there. On their specific world building site, I came across a question about laser weaponry on a battlefield versus armor that could deal with that. Mainly, like everybody thinks, mirrors. So I answered it, and then I got thinking a little bit more about it and decided I would do some testing as far as the materials I suggested would work better than mirrors. So this is my recording of that test. So I'm here at my local makerspace, which is where I do most of my work. And this is the laser I'm going to be testing with. This is an 80-watt laser cutter. We do happen to have a 100-watt laser cutter, but that uses some different software that I'm not familiar with yet. It's relatively new, and I figure that if I did these tests on that machine, I could get in a lot of trouble, so I'm not going to do that. So instead, going to do this on the older machine, which has seen its wear and tear before. I know it basically inside and out, what it can do, and so this is where I'm going to be today. These are the materials I selected to work with today. So when I answered the question before, I suggested that acrylic and polycarbonate would work really well. So that's what I have a stack of here. This is a combination of acrylic and polycarbonate. So you can see it's all clear. In fact, it's all crystal clear. So huge stack, and you can still see exactly through it. So we got some writing here. I put all the stacks there. You can still see, as long as there's no reflection, you can still see the writing through it. And if you look on the edge here, this is the only way that I know how to tell the difference between polycarbonate and acrylic without like burning it. So the white edges are the acrylic, and the darker edges, in real life it's a light blue, that is the polycarbonate. What I have over here is something that I suggested doing. Is I have a piece of polycarbonate and acrylic glued together. It's not the greatest gluing job. I normally do it on a very small edge glue instead of a face glue like this, so I got a lot of bubbles in it. Doesn't really affect anything except for clarity. So I'm just going to go ahead and do some tests with this to see how well things absorb. I'm also going to be having some paper underneath all of this so that you can see that the acrylic and the polycarbonate, that they do, or if they do, absorb the laser. This is a CO2 laser. It has a 10.6 picofarad wavelength, I believe is what the symbol means. So we'll see what those absorb. And something I didn't think about earlier is rubber, just common rubber. In fact, this is Buna-N or Buna-N. I'm not sure how you pronounce it. But this is, as far as I know, the only laser-safe material out there. So when this cuts, it cuts without forming bad chemicals like cyanide or chlorine or fluorine or anything like that. It also is able to be cut relatively cleanly. Now in this case, I didn't have it set up quite correctly, so in some spots it didn't cut very clean. That's not too bad of a cut, but I will show you how that stuff reacts to a laser in a couple of different ways. So let's get to that in a second here. So a mirror only reflects certain wavelengths. Now, one of the answers that I gave and somebody else gave is that different mirrors reflect the different wavelengths. In this case, this does reflect, as you can see right in the center there's a silver tube right here. That is the end of the laser going over to this piece, which is a mirror, and that does reflect the beam from the back of the machine over. It's kind of dark in here today, so I have a flashlight here. So we have another mirror here on the end of the gantry system. That goes forward and backwards across the machine. There you can see it a little bit better. And here we have what actually goes back and forth. And through this hole we have a mirror that sits back here that directs it down into a lens which focuses it. So I am going to be doing a couple of different experiments. I'm going to be doing it with the raw laser coming out of the machine past those two mirrors and right before it gets to this mirror. So this, before it hits this mirror, it is what is called a collimated laser, which means that all of the rays of the laser are in parallel to each other, essentially. They are all in a line. In this phase, the beam is anywhere from 3 to 5 millimeters in thickness, completely from the laser over to the lens that is about right here inside of this tube. This lens makes it into a focused laser that comes out here and generally does the cutting. In this machine, you don't ever cut with the collimated light. You always do the focused light. So in this machine, again, the focus is 17 millimeters from this nozzle. You get any closer or any farther away and it doesn't cut quite as well because the light isn't concentrated as much. So I will be doing some tests before and after that lens, just to see the difference. So what I'm going to do here is I am excuse me, going to cut a circle out of this acrylic, and you're going to watch it basically inside the machine as I do this. Alright, so I forgot to turn on the chiller for that. I did it right as I got to the end of that, so I'll do it again. So that cut completely through, nice and cleanly. It was a nice polished edge on that. This is a focused machine, so I have to make sure that it's the same height in between, so that's good. And this is the polycarbonate. Interestingly enough, that cuts all the way through, but this has, let's get a backdrop to it, a blackened edge. Your cut here is all black. This is the acrylic that we just did a second ago. This is all nice and clear. So we can see that the settings I have just randomly in the machine that I picked was good enough to cut both of these materials. Even though the polycarbonate was really nasty cut. Next I'm going to do the Buna-N. You may want to put some goggles on for this because it's bright. That was exactly the same power settings, and wow! I am really surprised that that actually cut all the way through. I'm going to have to use those settings the next time I do this material. This is actually surprising the heck out of me. Next is the laminate material, where it's polycarbonate and acrylic. Alright, that's focused, ready to go. Oh, there's a lot more smoke. That did not cut all the way through. It cut most of the way through. I can actually feel the edge on the back here. But that is not quite... Oh, there we go. So that looks like I cut through the acrylic first. That is a really nasty cut. So next, now that we know the focus laser can cut through all of this, we're going to go up top to the collimated laser and we'll see the difference, if there is one. There should be a difference. Alright, so now I have our piece of plastic that we cut a hole in earlier. This, by the cleanness of the hole, that's the acrylic. I now have a sheet of paper underneath. We are going to run the same settings with the collimated light, and we'll see if there is any difference here, and I'm going to adjust things a little bit so I can get maybe everything in the same shot. Okay, there we go. So, considerably different. What we have there is a half circle that happened because eventually that collimated light got all the way through. So that took just a couple of seconds. I can't see, but it did happen to go all the way through. That is what you would typically expect to see, at least I would think, in a futuristic weapon. A collimated beam of light rather than a focused beam of light coming at you. So next, get my tape going here. We got the polycarbonate. And if this gets too much flame, I didn't expect the flame last time, but if there's too much flame this time, I'm just going to shut it off. Darn it, I forgot to move the piece of paper. But looking at that, let's get a backdrop here. That did not cut all the way through. That's ash. It's not even warm, but let's look at the back here. That's, ow, very warm, but is not all the way through. So that's polycarbonate for you. That's how much polycarb can absorb. So next, I hope that stays. That's the piece of rubber. Again, same safety protocol. If it flames up too much, we're done. So we don't have any hole there, except for that original one. Throw our standard backdrop there. That is not all the way through. I don't even want to touch that because that's going to be a hot, sticky, burny, like 3rd degree burn, I'm sure. Last but not least, tape is our combo material. Let's see, I'll have it go through the acrylic side first and then through the polycarb. So the polycarb is the blue layer back here. Looks like it's blue on the edge anyway. And we'll get that going. Piece of paper is ready. And we'll see how bad this is. Kind of what I expected. So you got that same divot. This is the acrylic on its own. We got some interesting splatter patterns on both, actually. We got a nice crater. Now this is double thickness because it's the same acrylic and polycarbonate that I've been using, but I just glued 2 pieces of it together. So there is that to consider. But you can see that it went all the way through the acrylic. Let's get the polycarb out here. So it's starting to have the same carbonizing effect in the polycarbonate. But that, you can see on the paper there, there's only the 1/2 moon. And this side is just barely warm to the touch. So there you go. You got a couple of different levels of laser-proof armor for you. Both polycarb and acrylic are super light. You can see through them. Rubber works pretty good. Although now that I see what happens, I do not want to be inside of a rubber suit being fired at with a laser, and I'm sure you wouldn't want to be in a rubber suit. That's better. Turn the machine off. Wouldn't want to be in a rubber suit in the middle of the desert, especially if you're being fired at by lasers. So we've got some tests done. Did not harm the machine in any significant way. There is a little bit of blackness there that should wipe off. That blackness is from a previous fire. That took the machine down for a couple of months while we got some new parts. But that is, yeah, just a little bit of soot, and we're fine. So I think I'm done with my testing for the day. Thanks for watching, and see you guys later.